Tax reforms are efforts geared towards improving revenue generation in the country through ease and modes of tax administration. It is a viable instrument of public finance whose magnitude affects the level of economic activity of any economy. The World Bank asserts that tax revenues of at least 15% is crucial in mobilizing sufficient resources for investments in health, education and infrastructure, and is typically associated with accelerated economic growth and development. Now, the federal government acknowledges that revenue mobilization remains a significant constraint to Nigeria's fiscal viability and has made comprehensive tax reforms to address the gaps. The Tinubu administration undertook a multifaceted approach to reshape Nigeria's tax landscape by setting up a presidential committee on fiscal policy and tax reforms. Now, these reforms are designed to transform the tax system to support sustainable development and achieve a minimum of 18% tax to GDP ratio within the next 3 years. The goal is to attain the objective of revenue mobilization, which is part of the imperative for the tax reform. So how has the new tax regulations fared under 1 year of the Tinubu administration? What are the gains and challenges, especially looking at revenue accruals to finance development? On Weekend File tonight, our focus is tax reforms implementation 1 year after. And our guest is Dr. Chijoke Ikechukwu, a financial and investment expert. Don't forget, we have reports that have been filed in by our correspondents. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. This is Weekend File. I'm Ruth Aguela. First, we'll begin with the news. The Vice President, Kashim Shettima, has officially opened the 15th Northeast Joint Domestic Trade Fair in Bauchi. The trade fair is expected to set a new economic agenda for more development of the 6 states in the region that suffered from the activities of insurgency. We'll bring you the report in the course of the bulletin. With on to other issues, the Northeast Governors Forum is calling on the federal government to include the region into its national infrastructural developmental plan. In a 12-point communique after its 10th meeting in Bauchi, the forum has resolved to prioritize agricultural production as part of efforts to revitalize the economic growth. Awal Abdullahi reports.
Concern over the inadequate federal allocations to the states, poor condition of roads, especially that linking Maiduguri to Enugu, and call for an urgent federal government implementation of the 330 kVA transmission line are among the issues concerned in the communique.
Forum reiterates its concern over the seeming neglect of the Northeast in the allocation of the federal government capital project. It noted with dismay that despite its cry for attention on the state of infrastructure in the region, which has been consistently echoed in all its communique over the years, especially the poor roads and railway infrastructures along the economic corridor that links the Northeast sub-region to the rest of the country.
The climate change and environmental degradation, food security crisis, poor agricultural practice among the youth, and the need to provide enabling environment for investors are major priorities of the Governors Forum.
Accordingly, the Forum urged the federal government to direct CGCN to take immediate action. The Forum has resolved, in the short time, to set up a solar power plant that can generate a minimum of 10 megawatts per state.
While commending the Bauchi State government for hosting the Northeast Trade Fair to promote the commercial activities, the Northeast Governors Forum has also agreed to work out modalities that will improve the agricultural production and processing. In Bauchi, Awal Abdullahi, NTA News.
In line with the determination of the present administration to complete inherited projects and boost infrastructural development, the first phase of the Federal University of Transportation has been completed. The project has officially been handed over to the Ministry of Transportation in a ceremony witnessed by the Minister of Transportation, Saidu Alkali, the Governor of Katsina State, and other stakeholders. Let's hear from Vivian Ezedife.
It's a new dawn in manpower and infrastructure development in Nigerian's ivory tower with the birth of Federal University of Transportation, Daura Katsina State, a world-class project with state-of-the-art facilities. The Minister of Transportation, Saidu Alkali, therefore attests to the fact that the specialized institution meets all the requirements of the Nigerian University Commission.
As a result of this intervention and personal contact with relevant ministries, the universities have commenced academic activities for 2023-2024 session with principal officers, field support staff appointed. Approval for take-up by TED Fund was granted.
May the China-built Transportation University serve as a beacon of knowledge, innovation, and friendship, shining a bright light for our two countries towards greater success and prosperity.
And this is a huge opportunity for economic prosperity, and then it allows our children to get a specialized education. And this is one of its kind in Nigeria and in Africa.
Already, academic activities have kicked off with 600 students who crave for more facilities to aid their learning. The Federal University of Transportation was conceived in 2019, while construction work began in 2021. In Abuja, Vivian Ezedife, NTA News.
The federal government has affirmed its commitment to expand the base of entry into the profession of gemstones and jewelry making for a significant contribution to the gross domestic product of the country, with a training institute to boost capacity and skills of youths. The Minister of Solid Minerals Development, Dele Alake, made this known at the National Gemstones and Jewelry Show, organized by the Mineral Sector Support for Economic Diversification, Mindiver, under the auspices of the Ministry of Solid Minerals Development.
And I say that there is no state in this country that has not got one type of mineral or the other. So why should Nigeria be talking of poverty? If we had done the needful years and decades ago, if we had diverted our attention to this sector that is capable of sustaining Nigeria economically. But today, we are here because the nation can no longer solely rely on petrodollars, because petrodollars itself is dwindling.
Today, we gather to celebrate the artistry, craftsmanship, and the beauty of jewelry locally produced in Nigeria.
The minister, supported by the Permanent Secretary, Mary Ogbe, presented certificates to different batches of graduates, including starter packs to enrich their skills acquisition. The Nigerian Air Force says it is reinventing the future with homegrown talents and finding solutions through indigenous technology. While the force, tipped to become the third largest in Africa, the goal is to become fully self-reliant. Well, that's what the Chief of Air Staff says when he inspected some of these innovations at a research and development competition organized by the Mobility Command as part of activities marking NAF at 60. Defense correspondent Najatu Tijani reports.
Innovations which are expected to revolutionize the capabilities of the Nigerian Air Force. A competition which showcases the ingenuity and creativity of Nigerian Air Force engineers and researchers.
If you have to depend on foreign vendors for your defense needs all the time, it's also not good for your national security. And that is why, over time, the Air Force has deemed it very fit and necessary to set up very robust R&D setup.
One of the standout innovations includes portable 3-in-1 avionics device. Ordinarily, the engineers would need 3 separate workbenches to perform the avionics, but The engineers at the Nigerian Air Force have been able to combine all three into a portable avionics device, saving the country millions of naira.
And that is why we put in so much effort in this research and development efforts. The ultimate aim is for us to produce everything that we require and then win ourselves off, and that ultimately will project our ranking much better.
The NAF is already set to be the third largest in Africa, and as it integrates these cutting-edge solutions, Nigerians can expect a significant boost in counterinsurgency efforts. As the Chief of the Air Staff says, the future of air power is bright, and it's being made in Nigeria. Naja'atu Tijani, NTA News.
Banex Plaza, a popular shopping mall in Abuja, has been shut down by soldiers over an incident between some of its personnel and some traders. When NTA crew arrived at the scene of the incident, men in military camouflage were on ground to prevent further outbreak of law and order.
Go enter small arguments before you go bring like 3 soldiers come.
Now who bring 3 soldiers come?
The customer.
Okay, go ahead.
So as the bring 3 soldiers come now, as they come to the shop now, they try to create awareness, try to disturb other customer waiting for the shop. Now the shop owner run go call police post waiting for the banners. They go settle the issue. When the man come now with his gun, he was trying to ask what happened. Now those soldiers now no really won't hear the policeman.
They shut down the plaza since around 3-4. So now everybody has gone home.
The federal government has donated relief materials to victims of windstorm in Nasarawa State to enable them get back their lives again. Aliyu Tijani reports that the National Commission for Refugees, Migrants and Internally Displaced Persons did the donation in Lafia.
Communities in Kiana, Away, Obi and Doma local government areas were ravaged by windstorm recently, with properties destroyed and loss of lives. Federal government steps in by bringing succor to the victims and support to enable them rebuild their houses.
The federal government gets up for the contribution that they are just bring to the people that rainfall affect them. We are very, very grateful for what the federal government contribute to us.
Federal Commissioner, National Commission for Refugees, Migrants and Internally Displaced Persons presents the relief materials to the victims in Lafia. He says the Commission is also establishing skills acquisition center to rehabilitate displaced persons across the country.
With President Ahmed Bola Tinubu, GCFR, and President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the renewed hope agenda in place at the cornerstone, our vision for a better Nigeria is possible and achievable.
I was so happy to hear the Federal Commissioner thinking outside the box when he started mentioning about skill acquisition center. That is the direction to go in order to give them some sense of belonging.
The Commission also presents deed donated by Saudi Arabian government to vulnerable persons in the state. In Lafia, Aliyu Tijani, NTA News.
The Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, felicitates with the newly elected Executive Council of the African Public Relations Association at its annual conference in Abuja, Côte d'Ivoire. Mohammed Idris, a fellow of the association, acknowledged the significance of the election for the advancement of public relations across Africa, adding that while it is a pivotal moment for the association, the collective expertise and leadership of the newly elected executives would be instrumental in attaining the long-term vision of the association. In a statement, the Special Assistant to the Minister on Media, Rabiu Ibrahim, says the new Executive Council comprises Eric Karani from Kenya as President, Michelle Mekeme from Cameroon as Vice President, and Omoni Ibiton from Nigeria as Secretary. In other news, the Office of the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Special Needs and Equal Opportunities is investigating an alleged marginalization and discrimination of a person with disability by a domestic commercial airline in Maiduguri. Alhaji Usman Gabai, Yobe State Chairman of the Joint National Association of Persons with Disabilities, who has been reported to have been denied his right to fly. The Special Assistant to the President on Special Needs and Equal Opportunities, Mohammed Isa, said immediate steps are being taken to rectify the situation.
I have summoned the management of Rano Air Limited for an urgent meeting to address and resolve this issue immediately.
All right, we'll take a break now. When we come back, we'll begin our conversation on tax reforms implementation 1 year after. Stay tuned. Good to have you back. Before we begin our conversation on tax reforms implementation 1 year after, we'll bring you some reports now. Work on harmonization of multiple taxes and levies at all levels of government and business has reached an advanced stage, with 5 executive orders and legislative reviews underway to ensure implementation. Benny Adams has an insight into the workings of the Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms.
Our primary mandate is to actually make it easier for Nigerians to do business, to go about their legitimate economic activities in a way that government stimulates and support them rather than trying to tax them upfront.
Observers say slashing the number of taxes and levies from a staggering 62 to a single digit is a bold move towards stimulating economic growth and simplifying the tax landscape. While this is work in progress, the how remains the question on the lips of many.
We have set out some assumptions or some bedrock. One of them is the sequencing of the implementation of this reform.
So we think we can also close this policy gap. And also we see areas where technology can play a critical role.
Already, some quick wins have been recorded. For the organized private sector, it is one thing to put forth reforms, and another thing is effective implementation.
There's a lot of deficit trust for government, and our constituencies are looking forward to effective implementation of our rigorous effort and the recommendation.
With efforts gradually translating to outcomes, the business community is eagerly waiting for that time when the days of cumbersome taxes will be over. For now, government is embracing cutting-edge technology to ensuring seamless tax payment and monitoring. The introduction of tax identification number has streamlined the process, allowing businesses and individuals to easily register and file their taxes online. Many believe as Nigeria continues on this tax reform journey, one thing is clear: the days of tax complexities are behind us, and a brighter economic future lies ahead.
Indeed, Benny. Well, aligning policy coordination between federal and state tax authorities is paramount to avoid conflict and ensure consistency across various tax jurisdictions. This, experts on tax matters say, can be achieved through discussions on strategy, regulations, and enforcement. Amaka Owo reports.
The creation of the Presidential Fiscal Policy Tax Reforms Committee is considered a masterstroke to close the gaps in the tax administration system at the center and sub-national levels.
The way to go when you want to initiate a new tax or reform the existing one had already been pointed by Adam Smith. You need to be fair. You need to be equitable. You need to look at the administrative efficiency, because tax policy is more or less a declaration of a principle of what we govern, what we do, or what we do not do in the tax space.
Sharing tax data and information between federal and state tax authorities is crucial for identifying tax evasion and ensuring compliance. This can involve the creation of centralized database where tax information from different jurisdictions can be assessed and analyzed.
Experts advise government to adhere to realistic policies of the Tax Reform Committee, ensure stakeholders' engagement to avoid pushbacks from taxpayers.
By the time the Presidential Fiscal Policy Tax Reform Committee report comes out, government should look at it quickly, implement it. The one that requires a constitutional amendment should be done speedily.
They also urge the government to tax the right population for a win-win situation by considering taxpayers who earn below the minimum living wage. In Lagos, Amaka O, NTA News.
Right, let's begin our conversation, and we have a guest in the studio, Dr. Chijoke Ikechukwu, a financial and investment expert. Thank you very much, Dr. Ikechukwu, for joining us.
Thank you very much. It is my pleasure.
All right, looking at tax reform implementation 1 year after, of course, the Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reform is working on its recommendations. If you have to give your assessment, if we're looking at building a resilient and efficient tax administration system for Nigeria, what would it be?
You know, for many years, the ease of doing business identified multiple taxation as a major bane in the growth of our country. And you see that every year when certain conferences or meetings are held, that particular discussion will continue to hold. Within the week, this week that ended, Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria had their annual conference. I was also a speaker there on this matter and many other issues that came up. You see that this came at a time when we would just want to rev up revenue, yet ease of doing business must exist, and people will have to do business in Nigeria without having to sweat so much. We have our tax to GDP ratio at 10.8%, which, to my opinion, is not good enough for a country like ours with our size of GDP. You know, so what we have to do is just to encourage businesses so that doing business in Nigeria will not just be that which people just regret. So the efforts made by government right now in setting up this committee is it's just a welcome development, because people stop doing business in Nigeria just because of the kind of taxes they receive. Now, in implementing it, because all the time we talk about multiple taxation, people usually look at the federal taxes. But the problems actually come from the kind of taxes that come from municipal area councils or local government areas or states. You know, in that conference I mentioned well over 16 papers I received from municipal area council in Abuja that they served me in my office for different taxes and different levies to be paid. No business will ever exist like that with that kind of with those kind of taxes. So this harmonization of taxes has come at the right time when people are going to have some respite, so that an average person doing business anywhere in Nigeria will have to know the kind of taxes, the names of the taxes he is made to pay. Many Nigerians don't know the taxes that our levies are supposed to be paying. All they will see is that that paper will quote certain laws that you don't even have or know about. So we need to know what these things are, and it has to be the same all over the country, so that we know that we have these taxes to be paid. So we expect that when this committee comes up with their full implementation paper, Nigerians should be able to have some respite.
Well, if I get you correctly, Dr. Ikechukwu, you're talking about advocacy, more like sensitization, to educate the populace to understand their rights and obligations, you know, as taxpayers. Of course, we know that tax a powerful tool to bridge financial gaps. Now, I like the fact that you mentioned that at the municipal areas, before you get to that down level, you have to start from the state level also. So what role can states also play, you know, in educating the citizens who are the taxpayers to understand their rights, their obligations, and also contribute to government's effort to remove the burden?
First of all, the education will have to start from, well, we're talking about the states and the federal harmonizing. And when the states have agreed on the taxes that are allowable in their various states, they will have to drill it down to the municipal area council or local government areas, as it is called in some states. And so it's in the position of the governor or the minister of FCT to say these are the taxes that are allowed in this FCT. And every Nigerian will know. And once these taxes and levies are known, then the next thing is just the implementation and, of course, the information that will have to spread to Nigerians. Every Nigerian needs to know what taxes he's supposed to pay. Because many of them, we are hearing them for the first time. Some of them are so funny. If they even mention their names, you wonder how is this part of law that people have to pay this. So we need to, once these things are known, Nigerians have to also have the right to know which taxes they are supposed to pay, as the case may be. So that communication and information will have to pass around the whole business people of Nigeria. This has been a major bane, actually. So I'm so happy that this is coming now, and we're expecting that the solution will just come as soon as all these things are implemented.
Yes, and one other critical challenge is the issue of high prevalence of tax evasion. Now, the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, you know, decried that the 10.8% you mentioned, it's very poor because Nigerians don't pay, you know, their tax, which is quite unfortunate. Now, stakeholders have a very crucial role to play. If Nigeria must meet its target of 18% by, you know, in the next 3 years, you know, surpassing 16.5% of Africa's ratio. So how can, you know, stakeholders also contribute to support government's effort and reduce this burden of, you know, tax evasion we get to see all the time?
You know, what we don't have is enough database. We don't have enough database in the country so far to be able to track what inflow or outflow every single person is having. A lot of tax evasion is taking place. That I believe, and that I know, and we agree. But we need to deploy a lot of technology into this, to the extent that no matter what you do, you cannot miss the eye of that technology that is going to look at all the movement of funds and all the income and revenues that people are making. Many times they circumvent these payments by making sure their payments don't pass through corporate accounts where they won't pay CIT and things like that. And so the technology should be able to track any of the movements of these inflows and outflows and revenues and profits made to be able to know who's supposed to pay what. And it shouldn't be what you declare. It should be what the system, the technology sees that you are supposed to pay. So we need to see how countries who have done it well have survived, have done it and done it well. So maybe some kind of looking into some countries that have very high tax revenue force, and to know how they've been able to achieve that.
Okay.
And you know, so that's what we need to do.
Well, it's good that the drive is also to push for this digitization. If you're looking at assessing, monitoring, collection, and all of that, we'll pick up with the conversation. Let's take a break. Good to have you there. We'll take some more reports before we continue our conversation. Amidst the federal government's efforts to achieve its ambitious target of 18% tax to GDP ratio within 3 years, commercial hubs like Kano State are pivotal to achieving the set goals. In this report, well, we examine Kano's significance in tax revenue generation, the strategic importance of tax reforms, efforts to address non-payment issues, and challenges to achieve the set goals. Let's hear from Elizabeth Yila.
Kano State stands as a beacon of economic activity in Nigeria, boasting a diverse range of industries and a bustling commercial landscape. Its thriving businesses and industrial establishments contribute significantly to government revenue through various taxation channels, though this is not without its challenges to revenue generators and taxpayers alike.
When you buy goods from outside, you are able to clear per container at the amount of not less than 500,000. But now, because of the revenue taxations, clearance, each container we are paying almost 10 million. And also you have to share that money among the goods that you are carrying from the container.
To overcome these hurdles and maximize revenue generation, experts believe a comprehensive strategy is needed to foster a culture of voluntary compliance.
Non-payment of tax still comes down to the issue of awareness creation. If you create awareness and people are able to access information on what the money has been used for, there's transparency that, okay, we generate this money and this is what it's been used for. I'm sure Nigerians are interested in development.
It's not necessarily we need to increase the number of taxes or find new taxes, but it's to widen the net, so that those who are not paying tax will be captured in the net so that they will be able to pay.
By addressing these challenges head-on, Kano can optimize its tax collection potential and contribute significantly to the federal government's revenue targets. In Kano, Elizabeth Yila, NTA News.
Well, tax reform is a fundamental fiscal policy strategy designed to enhance the tax administration. Well, the conversation is tax reform implementation 1 year after. Dr. Ekechukwu, I'm sure you saw that report from Kano there. If we want to look at, the role of states, what kind of practices, should be adopted to deepen this tax reform? Because it's one thing to have the impact of the tax reform, and it's another thing to ensure compliance.
An average government of every state will obviously want to optimize collections. On their own, they want to collect as much as they can get from people in order to fund their budget and their expenditure. And so, in the process of doing that, it should not be such that the people within that particular state will have to suffer tremendously losses. We heard a man from Kano complaining about the kind of taxes they are paying in Kano, and at the end of the day, the cost will be spread around ultimate consumers. And so consumers like you and I will always pay the fees, we face the challenges of these high taxes. And so we need to ensure that even when we are having revenue drive, we need to be sure that they are not affecting the standard of living or creating so much hardship in various states of the federation. Because as we talk about what is going on in the federal, we're also having Nigerians all over the states and in fact in local government areas doing businesses and living. So it is important that this particular drive from the federal government has to be dovetailed to the states so that all of them will come together in one room to say, we have agreed that this is what we're going to pay and we're going to charge. And so we don't expect that some states will be charging more than some other states, so that Nigerians will know at the time what fees and what taxes they're supposed to be paying. And so that will be a common knowledge to every Nigerian.
All right, and Dr. Ekechukwu, of course we know it's not up to a year when the committee, the presidential committee was set up. It was just towards the end of last year. So it's a gradual process. Yeah. But let's bring in a report from Enugu now where our correspondent, Chinenye Wonye, takes a look at how commercial and industrial businesses in some states in the southeast zone have fared and the role of key players in helping the government achieve its goal of deepening tax reforms.
The Nigeria tax system is basically structured as a tool for revenue generation, but the tax system in Nigeria seems to be confronted by many issues such as multiplicity of taxes, non-availability of database, and non-payment of tax refunds, among others. This perhaps could be some of the reasons why President Bola Tinubu, on assumption of office, initiated the process of tax reforms with a view to guarantee efficiency in tax administration, as well as improve the revenue profile of the country. President Tinubu also inaugurated the Presidential Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms Committee to ensure seamless implementation of the reforms. And the committee recommended merging into one over 200 taxes being paid by businesses.
The sense of that committee is actually to streamline and reduce the number of taxes that are paid by Nigerians, to make sure that it is narrowed and to widen the tax net so that more revenue is actually collected from taxations.
For the business communities in Aba, Abia State, and in Onitsha, as well as other parts of Anambra State, it was different strokes for different folks as they react to the tax reforms.
For me, it really hit hard on the businessmen.
Is it a lot of dividend because individuals are now having more disposable income, and when individuals have more disposable income, the tendency for them to spend more, and when they spend more, they kind of actually make the possibilities of people getting more employment opportunities.
The respondents, however, acknowledged the fact that there is no gain without pain, and that taxation is one of the obligations of citizens, hence the need for key players to support the government in achieving its goals of deepening tax reforms by playing their roles. In Enugu, Chinenye Nwoye, NTA News.
All right, Dr. Ikechukwu, indeed, no pain, no gain, especially at a critical time. Government is looking at ways, to leverage on domestic resource mobilization from taxes. It is also crucial to boost taxpayers' confidence. What would be your recommendations, to encourage taxpayers, citizens, to have confidence in the system again?
When people are checked or examined for the possible tax they are supposed to pay, it has to be that which has to be fair. Many times when you receive any letter from tax people, tax institutions to say they are coming to your place, whether state or federal, the next thing that comes to your mind is that you are in trouble and you are going to cough out a lot of money. And so it has to be that exercise that people should be able to know that, okay, the essence of this exercise is to come and help your business and to actually help government also take a little from what you are making, because the more you make money, the more government will make money from you. If you don't make money, government will not make money. So people should just know that this is just about contributing to the growth, economic growth of the country. And like you mentioned, we need to sensitize Nigerians to this extent. Somebody also mentioned that when Nigerians know what the monies are used for, they will be happy paying. And that's actually what the idea is all over the country, all over the world, sorry. When people know what monies are collected for and they see the thing clearly, they will be happy paying. So we need to have advocacy, we need to sensitize Nigerians, and so when it comes to paying, they will pay and expect that government will indeed utilize what they have said they are going to use it for. And again, while we're doing the reform should also work towards reducing some kind of malpractices within that sector, because a lot of people think there's a lot of shady things around the tax payment areas, and so Nigerians need to know that corruption needs to completely be removed from that area, so that there will be clear areas. People will have to see how much is collected and how much is being deployed by government. I think that way the confidence of Nigerians will come back.
Dr. Chijioke Ikechukwu, of course, is a collective responsibility. Just as citizens understand their rights, it is their right to pay tax, just as it is their right to ask what their taxes are being used for. Well, let's put our hands together and support the government. Thank you very much for your time. He is a financial and investment expert. We'll go on a break. We're back. Stay tuned. Glad you stayed. UN has bemoaned the escalation of violence in Darfur, where hostilities between the Sudanese armed forces and the Rapid Support Forces are negatively impacting civilians. Francis Udojo has these and more on Global Update.
The spokesperson for the Office of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Ravina Shamdasani, at a news briefing revealed that at least 58 civilians are reported to have been killed and 213 others injured in El Fasher since fighting dramatically escalated last week. Shamdasani said the UN Human Rights Chief, Volker Turk, had held phone conversations with both sides and had urged them to put aside estranged positions.
The High Commissioner reminded the commanders of their obligations under international humanitarian law to ensure strict compliance with the principles of distinction, proportionality, and precaution.
In another development, the anticipatory actions put in place over the last 2 years by the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, FAO, to mitigate the extreme weather events caused by El Nino in 23 countries have protected the food security and livelihoods of over 1.6 million people. FAO is issuing modeling based on previous El Nino-driven weather patterns. And 3 Spanish tourists have been killed and at least 1 Spaniard was injured in an attack by gunmen in Afghanistan's central Bamiyan province. 4 persons are said to have been arrested in connection with the attack. Francis Udojo, NTA News.
All right, next will be Sports Update.
The Nigerian under-17 girls, known as the Flamingos, displayed a remarkable performance as they achieved a convincing 6-0 victory against their West African opponents, the Burkina Faso under-17 girls at the Moshood Abiola National Stadium, Abuja. As a result of this win, the Nigerian under-17 girls have successfully qualified for the final qualifying round, where they will be pitted against the winners of another match. Meanwhile, the Nigerian Women Football League Super 6 playoff for the 2023-24 season commenced on Saturday with Edo Queens securing a dominant 5-1 victory over Conference Queens. On match day 1, Nasarawa Amazons had an opportunity to earn 3 points but failed to convert a penalty against Heartland Queens, resulting in a goalless draw. Meanwhile, Rivers Angels played a 1-1 draw with Bayelsa Queens at the Samson Siasia Stadium in Yenagoa.
And my impression is that the female league is developing every day.
All is now set for the Ogun State Sports Festival as the Ministry of Education, Science and Technology has started the initial phase of the festival in different areas of the state. This is to prepare the young athletes for the upcoming championship.
See, our term is chosen on purpose. It's called Play Fair and Enjoy Competition. Go out there, like the Honorable Commissioner said, go out there, participate.
In handball, Adova Premier Handball League in Edo State enters day 6 as safety shooters at class Conflict Stars with a resounding 10-0 victory. The D defenders defeated Bene Buffaloes 22-17. Rema Strikers overcame Seasiders 27-23 and Kano Pillars thrashed Adamawa Warriors 30-22. With Sports Update, I'm Austin Edemodu, NTA News.
Right, we're done with Weekend File and we do appreciate your company. Do have a lovely night rest. I'm Ruth Aguela. Bye.